The rap world woke up thinking the war was finally over, but somehow, the smoke is still rising. And if you've been watching closely, you already know something feels off. Because according to insiders, the battle between Drake and Kendrick Lamar is technically finished, yet Drake is still losing the public war in ways nobody expected. Yeah, you heard that right. For months, fans watched one of the most brutal rap feuds in modern hip-hop history explode across the internet. Diss tracks, subtle shots, cryptic Instagram captions, stadium crowds screaming lyrics like they were battle chants. It felt less like music and more like a cultural earthquake shaking the entire industry. But then suddenly, silence. No new diss records. No late-night studio leaks. No more direct shots. On paper, the war was done. So why are fans saying Drake is still taking LS? Over the past few weeks, something strange has been happening. Clips from concerts started going viral. Old interviews resurfaced. Industry insiders began whispering about private conversations that were never supposed to leave the room. And somehow, every single moment kept pushing the narrative in one direction: Kendrick winning the public perception battle. Fans are shocked. Some are saying Drake underestimated how deep this rivalry would go. Others claim Kendrick played the long game, letting the internet slowly turn the tide without even dropping another diss. And then, things got even messier. Sources close to the situation claim that behind the scenes, Drake's own circle started questioning how the narrative slipped away from him. One insider allegedly said, "The music part ended months ago, but the internet never stopped scoring the fight." Emotions ran high across social media. The hip-hop community became completely divided. Some fans stood firmly behind Drake, arguing that numbers, tours, and streaming prove he's still untouchable. But others, they say something deeper happened in this feud, something that permanently shifted how the culture sees both artists. And the craziest part is this: the real drama didn't start during the diss tracks. It started after the war was supposedly over. When the diss tracks finally stopped dropping, the entire hip-hop world expected the chaos to cool down. For months, timelines had been flooded with breakdown videos, lyric dissections, and heated debates about who landed the hardest punch between Drake and Kendrick Lamar. Fans were exhausted but entertained. It felt like one of those legendary rap wars people would talk about for the next 20 years. So when both camps suddenly went quiet, most people assumed the storm had passed. But behind the scenes, insiders say something very different was happening. The battle might have ended musically, but the narrative war was just getting started, and somehow Drake was watching the public opinion slowly slip through his fingers. The first sign that things weren't normal came during one of Drake's concerts. It was supposed to be a celebration, another massive stadium show where thousands of fans screamed every lyric word for word. The lights were bright, the energy was high, and Drake was doing what Drake does best, commanding the stage like one of the biggest artists on the planet. But then a strange moment happened that nobody expected. A fan in the crowd held up a sign that read, "We're still playing Not Like Us Tonight," referencing the now infamous diss track tied to Kendrick's side of the feud. At first it seemed like just another internet joke. But within seconds, dozens of phones were recording Drake's reaction. He paused for a split second, barely noticeable unless you slowed the footage down. That tiny pause was enough for social media to explode. Within hours the clip spread across every platform. Reaction channels started analyzing the moment frame by frame. "Did you see his face?" one viral commentator asked in a live stream. "That wasn't the face of someone who won." Another creator added, "The war might be over, but the culture already chose its champion." Suddenly the narrative online began shifting in a way that Drake's team didn't expect. Because in hip-hop, perception matters just as much as the music itself. Numbers matter, sure. Streams, charts, tour sales, all of that counts. But the culture. That's decided by the crowd, the memes, and the conversations happening late at night on timelines and comment sections. Meanwhile, Kendrick stayed almost completely silent. And that silence made everything even louder. Fans kept pointing out how calculated it looked. "He doesn't even have to respond anymore," one fan tweeted. "The internet doing the work for him." Another post with hundreds of thousands of likes read, "Drake dropped 10 responses. Kendrick dropped a moment." The posts kept piling up, and every viral meme seemed to push the scoreboard further in Kendrick's favor. The strangest part was that Kendrick wasn't even participating. No interviews. No victory lap. Just silence. And somehow that silence became one of the loudest moves in the entire feud. Behind closed doors, sources claim Drake's camp started realizing the narrative problem. According to someone who allegedly works close to the situation, conversations inside the team became tense. "The music battle is finished," the insider reportedly said. "But the internet still thinks Drake lost." That's the kind of statement that can shake even the most confident superstar. Because Drake built his career mastering the internet era. Viral moments, clever captions, meme culture, those were once his greatest weapons. But now those same tools seem to be turning against him. Fans were noticing the shift too. Comment sections became battlefields. Some Drake supporters argued that the numbers told the real story. "He still outsold everybody," one fan wrote. "He's still packing arenas. Stop the narrative." But Kendrick supporters fired back immediately. "This was never about numbers," another comment read. "This was about respect." The debates got louder every day, with fans pulling out old interviews, dissecting lyrics, and even analyzing body language from months-old performances. Emotions ran high across the community, and the hip-hop world began to split into two very loud camps. And just when things seemed like they might calm down, another unexpected moment hit the internet. A resurfaced clip from an older interview began circulating again, showing Drake talking confidently about competition in rap years before the feud exploded. In the clip he reportedly said, "Nobody can stand across from me for long." At the time, it sounded like typical rap bravado. But now fans were reposting the clip with captions like, "Well, someone did." The video racked up millions of views overnight. Reaction channels debated it for hours. And suddenly a moment from the past became another piece of the current narrative. What made the situation even more complicated was that many artists in the industry started subtly choosing sides without directly saying it. A few rappers played Kendrick's songs during club appearances. Others posted cryptic tweets about authenticity in hip-hop. None of it directly mentioned Drake, but the timing made fans connect the dots instantly. Every small moment added fuel to the discussion, and before long the conversation wasn't about diss tracks anymore. It was about legacy, respect, and how the culture decides who really wins a rap war. As the debate kept growing louder online, something even more unusual started happening inside the industry itself. The energy around Drake began to feel different. Not hostile exactly, but noticeably colder. For years Drake had been the artist everyone gravitated toward. He was the hitmaker, who could jump on any track and turn it into a chart monster overnight. But after the feud with Kendrick Lamar cooled down, insiders started whispering that some artists were suddenly being more careful about publicly aligning themselves with him. It wasn't a full industry freeze, Drake was still Drake, but there was a quiet shift in tone that fans immediately began picking up on. One moment that sparked massive discussion happened during a major club appearance in Los Angeles. A well-known DJ was performing a packed set full of recent rap hits. Everything seemed normal until he suddenly dropped Kendrick's anthem from the feud. The crowd exploded instantly. Phones shot up in the air, people started screaming the lyrics, and the entire room felt like it turned into a victory rally. Clips of the moment spread online within minutes. But what really caught people's attention wasn't just the song, it was who was standing in the VIP section. Several rappers who had collaborated with Drake in the past were seen nodding along to the track while the crowd shouted every bar. Fans immediately began debating whether that moment meant something deeper. "Did you see who was in that section?" one reaction host said during a live stream breakdown. "Those are Drake's people." Another commentator replied, "In hip-hop, moments like that are never accidental." Within hours the footage became another viral talking point. Supporters of Kendrick argued that it showed how the culture had already decided who won the battle. Drake fans pushed back hard, saying people were overanalyzing a club moment that meant nothing. But the internet rarely lets moments fade quietly, and this one only got louder. Meanwhile, Drake himself tried to move forward with business as usual. He posted clips from studio sessions, shared photos from tour rehearsals, and dropped hints about upcoming music. On the surface, everything looked like the same unstoppable superstar energy he had maintained for over a decade. But fans watching closely noticed subtle details. Every post about new music was immediately flooded with comments referencing the feud. Some people demanded another response track. Others spammed Kendrick lyrics under the posts. The comment sections started turning into mini battle arenas, and every upload seemed to bring the feud back into the conversation again. Behind the scenes, sources claim Drake's inner circle had long discussions about how to shift the narrative. One industry insider allegedly revealed that there were debates about whether Drake should address the situation directly in interviews. "Some people on the team think silence makes it look worse," the insider claimed. Others think responding again would just restart the war. According to the rumor, Drake himself reportedly leaned toward moving on completely. The idea was simple: focus on the music, let the numbers speak, and allow time to cool down the public debate. But time wasn't exactly helping. Because every few days a new viral moment would appear online. One week it was a concert clip where a crowd loudly chanted Kendrick lyrics before Drake came on stage at a festival lineup. Another week it was a podcast discussion where hip-hop analysts argued that Kendrick had shifted the culture's respect scale. Those conversations started spreading beyond rap fans and into mainstream media commentary. Suddenly the feud wasn't just entertainment, it became a case study in how cultural perception works in the streaming era. Fans were shocked by how long the conversation lasted. Usually rap beefs fade once the music stops. But this one felt different. The internet had turned it into an ongoing storyline. Memes comparing lyrics, reaction videos analyzing facial expressions, deep dives into every public appearance, nothing escaped the microscope. One popular tweet summed up the mood perfectly: the battle ended in the studio, but the internet turned it into a season finale that never stops. And Kendrick's silence continued to play a powerful role in the narrative. While Drake remained visible, touring, posting, performing, Kendrick barely appeared at all. That absence created an almost mythical aura around him. Fans started treating every small sighting like breaking news. A blurry photo of Kendrick leaving a restaurant in New York even went viral for a day, simply because people believed he looked unbothered. Reaction channels laughed about it, but also admitted the strategy was working. "The less Kendrick says," one host explained, "the louder the internet talks for him." Drake supporters grew increasingly frustrated with the online narrative. In fan spaces and comment sections, they argued that the conversation ignored the bigger picture. They pointed out Drake's chart records, his massive tour numbers, and his influence on modern hip-hop. "You can't erase 15 years of dominance because of one feud," one fan wrote in a viral post defending him. Thousands agreed, but thousands disagreed just as loudly. The debate had officially turned into one of the most polarizing discussions the rap community had seen in years. Then came another twist that nobody expected. During a radio interview, a veteran producer who had worked with both artists, was asked about the feud. At first he tried to stay neutral. But at one point he said something that instantly ignited headlines. Drake won the business side, he explained carefully, but Kendrick might have won the respect side. That single sentence spread across hip-hop media like wildfire. Reaction channels dissected it, fans argued about it, and suddenly the debate had a new phrase attached to it: business versus respect. For Drake, the situation became more complicated with every passing week. On paper he remained one of the most successful artists in the world. But culturally, the conversation had shifted into a different territory, one that couldn't be measured by charts or streaming numbers. And as the narrative kept growing online, one uncomfortable truth began creeping into the discussion: even though the diss tracks had stopped, the public scoreboard was still moving. As the debate kept spiraling across the internet, another layer of tension began building behind the scenes, one that most fans didn't even realize was happening. According to industry chatter, several major media outlets and hip-hop platforms quietly started preparing interviews and panel discussions about the feud's long-term impact. And when the topic of Drake versus Kendrick Lamar came up, the tone in those rooms reportedly shifted in a way that surprised even longtime insiders. Instead of asking who dropped the hardest diss track, people began asking a much bigger question: who actually shifted the culture? One podcast recording that later went viral perfectly captured the moment. 3 respected rap analysts sat around a table discussing the aftermath of the feud. At first the conversation sounded calm and analytical, but then one host leaned forward and said something that immediately changed the energy in the room. "Look, Drake still dominates the charts," he admitted. But Kendrick did something different. He changed how people talk about Drake. The other 2 hosts went quiet for a moment before one of them responded slowly, "And that might be the real victory." When the clip hit social media, fans went wild. Within hours it had millions of views, and the comment section turned into another battleground. Supporters of Drake pushed back aggressively. Many argued that critics were rewriting history just to create drama. One viral comment read, "You can't say someone lost when they are still running the industry." Another fan wrote, "People acting like Drake stopped selling records overnight." Those arguments were backed up by hard numbers. Drake's catalog continued pulling massive streaming totals, and every announcement about his next project instantly became trending news. But the opposing side of the conversation wasn't focused on numbers anymore. They were focused on reputation, and in hip-hop culture reputation carries a weight that charts sometimes can't measure. Meanwhile, another unexpected moment started spreading online, this time involving a small backstage conversation that someone allegedly overheard during a music festival in Atlanta. According to a witness who later shared the story online, 2 younger rappers were discussing the feud while waiting near the stage entrance. One of them reportedly said, "Drake is still the biggest artist, but Kendrick showed everybody he's the one rappers respect the most." The other rapper allegedly nodded and replied, "Yeah, that changed something." No video existed to confirm the conversation, but that didn't stop the story from spreading like wildfire across hip-hop forums and fan pages. Fans were shocked at how every tiny rumor seemed to reinforce the same narrative. Even people who tried to stay neutral admitted that the cultural mood had shifted slightly in Kendrick's favor. It didn't mean Drake's career was collapsing, far from it. His influence remained enormous. But the aura around the feud had evolved into something more complicated than a simple win-or-lose scoreboard. It had turned into a discussion about authenticity, lyrical respect, and how artists are perceived within the deeper layers of hip-hop. At the same time, Drake continued performing around the world, and his concerts still looked like massive celebrations. Packed arenas, screaming fans, and hit after hit echoing through stadium speakers reminded everyone why he had dominated the music industry for so long. During one performance in Toronto, the crowd roared so loudly during one of his classic songs that the entire arena seemed to shake. Clips from that night went viral too, with Drake supporters posting captions like, "This is what a real winner looks like." For a moment, it seemed like the narrative might swing back in his direction. But the internet found another twist almost immediately. A fan-recorded video surfaced from the same concert showing a group of people in the crowd briefly chanting Kendrick's name before the next song started. The chant only lasted a few seconds, and most of the arena quickly drowned it out with cheers for Drake. Yet that tiny moment was enough for social media to erupt again. Reaction channels slowed down the clip, zoomed in on Drake's expression, and debated whether he heard the chant or not. Some said he looked unfazed. Others insisted the moment proved the feud was still haunting him. Inside Drake's circle, rumors began circulating that the constant online commentary was becoming frustrating. According to an unnamed insider, Drake allegedly joked during a private studio session, "The beef ended," but apparently the internet didn't get the memo. Those words, whether real or exaggerated, perfectly summed up the strange situation surrounding the feud's aftermath. Normally rap battles burn bright and then disappear. But this one had turned into an ongoing narrative fueled by millions of fans analyzing every detail. Meanwhile, Kendrick remained almost ghost-like in comparison. Outside of occasional sightings and vague reports that he was working on new music, he stayed largely invisible. That silence continued feeding the mythology around him. Some fans even started calling it the quiet victory strategy, claiming Kendrick understood that the longer he stayed silent, the more the culture would speak on his behalf. The contrast between the two artists became one of the most fascinating elements of the entire story. Drake was visible everywhere, performing, posting, and engaging with the world like the superstar he had always been. Kendrick was almost nowhere to be seen. Yet somehow both approaches kept the debate alive. Every time Drake appeared publicly, people analyzed it. Every time Kendrick stayed silent, people analyzed that too. By this point, the rap community felt completely divided. Some fans insisted Drake was still the undisputed king of modern hip-hop, pointing to his global reach and unmatched consistency. Others argued that Kendrick had accomplished something rarer. He had shifted the conversation about power and respect in the genre. And as the weeks kept passing, one uncomfortable truth became harder to ignore. The war between Drake and Kendrick might have ended musically, but culturally it was still unfolding in real time, and nobody could predict where the final perception would land. As weeks turned into months, the strange aftershock of the feud refused to disappear. In fact, the longer the silence lasted between Drake and Kendrick Lamar, the louder the conversations around them became. Fans expected things to calm down once both artists moved on to new music and new performances, but something about this rivalry had permanently embedded itself into the culture. Every new headline, every podcast discussion, every random social media clip somehow circled back to the same question: who really came out on top? Inside the music industry, artists and executives started speaking more openly about the situation. At private gatherings and backstage lounges during award shows, the feud reportedly became one of the most talked about subjects in years. According to a music journalist who attended one of these events, several producers and managers were having a heated discussion about the long-term impact of the battle. One producer allegedly said, "Drake still controls the business side of rap." Another quickly replied, "Maybe, but Kendrick shook the culture." The room reportedly went quiet for a moment after that sentence, as if everyone realized how complicated the situation had become. Meanwhile, Drake continued to do what he had always done, work relentlessly. Studio photos began appearing again on his social media pages, showing him surrounded by producers and engineers late at night. Short snippets of unreleased songs leaked online, and fans immediately began speculating that he might address the feud in new lyrics. Every tiny preview was dissected by reaction channels. Some listeners believed they heard subtle shots hidden in the verses. Others insisted Drake was intentionally avoiding the topic entirely. Either way, the anticipation around his next project grew larger every day. During one live stream discussion, a popular hip-hop commentator tried to explain the situation to his viewers. "This is bigger than a rap battle," he said. "Drake is fighting something invisible now. He's fighting perception." That phrase quickly started trending across social media. People repeated it in posts, memes, and comment sections. Fans were shocked at how a feud that technically ended months ago still controlled so much attention. The idea that Drake was battling public perception became a narrative that spread rapidly across the internet. At the same time, Kendrick's absence from the spotlight continued fueling speculation. Rumors circulated that he was quietly working on a new album somewhere in California, completely removed from the noise online. A few studio engineers allegedly hinted that the material he was recording sounded intense and personal, but no concrete details ever surfaced. That mystery only made fans more curious. If Kendrick drops again, one viral tweet read, "This whole story starts over." The post gained hundreds of thousands of likes within hours. Another dramatic twist came from an unexpected place. A group of veteran hip-hop journalists who had covered the genre for decades. During a roundtable discussion on a respected rap radio station, the hosts began debating the feud's legacy. One journalist said something that immediately grabbed everyone's attention. "Drake is still the biggest star in rap," he acknowledged carefully. But Kendrick reminded the culture that lyricism and respect still matter. The comment instantly spread across hip-hop blogs and fan pages, igniting another wave of arguments. Fans on both sides reacted intensely. Drake supporters argued that critics were unfairly framing the story to make Kendrick look like the moral victor. "Success should matter too," one fan wrote in a comment that received thousands of likes. Drake built one of the greatest careers in music history. Meanwhile, Kendrick supporters fired back with equal passion. "Hip-hop started as competition," another fan responded. And Kendrick stepped into that competition without fear. The online debates became so heated that moderators in several fan communities had to temporarily lock comment sections. In the middle of all this noise, a quiet but fascinating moment occurred during one of Drake's interviews on a radio show. The host carefully asked him about the aftermath of the feud. For a few seconds, Drake reportedly smiled before answering. "Rap battles are part of the culture," he said calmly. "But at the end of the day, I'm still here doing what I love." His response sounded confident and relaxed, yet fans immediately analyzed every word and tone of his voice. Some viewers said he looked unfazed. Others claimed there was a hint of frustration hidden beneath the calm answer. What made the entire situation so unusual was that both artists appeared to be winning in completely different ways. Drake continued dominating streaming platforms and selling out arenas worldwide. His brand remained powerful, and his influence on modern rap was undeniable. Kendrick, on the other hand, seemed to have captured something less measurable, but equally powerful: the perception of lyrical authority and cultural respect. The contrast between those two victories kept the conversation alive. Hip-hop had rarely seen a feud where both competitors emerged stronger in different areas, while the audience still argued about who truly won. For fans, it felt like watching a story that refused to end. Every week brought new debates, new viral moments, and new theories about what the future might hold. And as the tension in the culture kept simmering, one question slowly began to rise above all the others. If Drake eventually releases new music addressing everything that happened, will the narrative finally shift back in his favor? Or will the internet decide that this war was already settled long ago? The truth is, the story between Drake and Kendrick Lamar still feels unfinished. On paper, the war is over. The diss track stopped, the direct shots disappeared, and both artists moved back into their own lanes. But if you've been watching closely, you can see that the conversation never really ended. The culture is still debating it, fans are still analyzing every moment, and somehow the scoreboard keeps shifting depending on who you ask. Some people believe Drake is still winning where it matters most. His tours are massive, his music dominates streaming platforms, and his influence on the modern rap sound is undeniable. To them, success speaks louder than any internet narrative. They argue that the industry still moves when Drake moves, and that's the only score that truly counts. But others see it very differently. They believe Kendrick changed something deeper in hip-hop. According to those fans, the feud reminded the culture about lyrical respect, competitive spirit, and the importance of authenticity in rap. In their eyes, Kendrick didn't just battle Drake, he reshaped how people talk about him. And that's why the debate refuses to die. Fans are shocked that months later, the internet is still arguing about who really won. Emotions ran high throughout the entire feud, and the hip-hop community remains divided even now. Some say Drake will eventually reclaim the narrative with his next big release. Others believe Kendrick already secured a cultural victory that can't be undone. But here's the real question: what do you think? Did Drake actually lose the public perception battle, or is the internet exaggerating the whole situation? Did Kendrick truly outmaneuver him culturally, or will Drake prove everyone wrong with his next move? Because in hip-hop, the audience always has the loudest voice. So now it's your turn. Drop your opinion in the comments and let the debate begin. If you enjoyed this breakdown of the drama, make sure you hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications so you never miss the next explosive story from the rap world. Trust us, this saga might be quiet right now, but if history has taught us anything, it's that in hip-hop, the next twist is always around the corner. Microphone fire.